Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this presentation, and thank you for the committee to allow me to speak to you tonight. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about a subject that everybody here despises, which are trash. What you actually put in the bin. What I'm going to talk about here is how you can minimize waste, how you can get value out of your waste, and how you can eventually achieve a zero waste facility. So in this presentation, I'm first going to tell you why you should take care of your waste and what is the concept of zero waste. I'm then going to tell you the method in implementing a zero waste program in your facility. And finally, I'm going to talk about businesses that have implemented this program and what were the outcomes. So if there's one thing I would like you to remember tonight is waste is a sign of inefficiency. It costs you money, it takes space, requires manpower, can represent a significant liability, can affect your public relations, and does impact the environment. More waste you generate, and more all of this you have to deal with. Less waste, and less you have to deal with. Singapore. Last year, 2017, the non-domestic sector, which include industrial, commercial, and institutional sectors, have generated altogether 1.4 million tons of trash to incineration. Now, I had told you that waste takes space. Here is Marina Basin, 207 meters high. If we were going to pile up this 1.4 million tons of trash all together next to it, it will look like this. A pile of trash of 187 meters high, 374 meters diameter. I also told you that waste costs money, and that is an estimated cost for businesses of $122 million. This is $122 million wasted. Now the question is, how much waste are you for? And what about zero waste? So companies that have actually implemented zero waste and successfully closed the loop on waste are more sufficient and resource efficient. They save money and generate new revenue streams, and they add a significant value to the organization. So what is zero waste? You might already have heard about the concept of zero waste for individuals. But the concept of zero waste can actually be applied to other entities, and especially communities, politics, and businesses. In this presentation, I will focus exclusively on businesses. Now, what is zero waste? Zero waste is a goal and a strategy. The goal for your business is to make sure that 90% plus of all the waste you generate are diverted from landfill or incineration. The strategy is to focus on the 5 R's you see here. Reducing your waste, reusing as much materials as you can, re-earth, meaning compost, redesign, and eventually recycle. And never incineration or landfill should be an option. In other words, you need to make sure as a business that all discarded materials are designed to become resources for others to use, and where no resources are burnt, buried, or discharged into the environment. Now, I'm going to tell you about the waste bug. Here is a very typical supply chain. You have the extraction of virgin resources, the processing, the wholesaler, the retailer, and eventually you get to the point of consumption. Everything before is upstream, everything after is downstream. Every single step generates waste. The question is, how much materials do you think you waste back in making your product if you consider the whole supply chain? Some studies suggest that up to 95% of the materials being consumed throughout this process is actually wasted when you consider the final product. And this 95% of waste represent money, it represents cost. And the question is, how can you harvest it the best? In Singapore, it will cost you approximately from $90 to $150 per ton to send waste to incineration. But it has to be the case. If you can segregate waste in a proper manner, you can actually reduce the cost or eventually make money out of it. Let's talk about food waste. In Singapore, it is very unlikely that as a commercial facility, you might succeed to sell anything as a compost. But you can for sure reduce the volume, reduce the weight, and therefore reduce the cost. Cardboard is a commodity you can sell, and you can expect somewhere between $50 and $80 per ton. Paper has a higher value and can go up to $100 or $150 a ton. Plastic is a wide kingdom with all sorts of types of plastics. However, if you can succeed, it can go anywhere from $100 to $200 or sometimes more per ton. And of course, you have the metals that can go anywhere from $100 to $8,000 a ton. Now, I'm not going to talk about how you can get the best deal for this waste generation. But what I want to show you here is that is what you can expect, that's the value you can recover from discards. What you want to avoid is the generation of waste in the first start. Here is a plastic bottle. It has a use, it has a value. I can still refill it and continue to drink the water from this bottle. As soon as I discard this bottle, it will lose its use. As soon as it goes into the trash, it has lost 90% of its value. The best is what you can do here is to recover as much as you can and eventually sell it to a recycler. But in the end, what you want to avoid is to discard it in the first place. If you can avoid that, you actually save a significant amount of cost. Now, let's take an example. Shopping malls in Singapore are probably one of the largest generator of waste to incineration. And here is a very typical waste breakdown per weight. You usually have a third of cardboard and paper, a third of food waste, a third of plastics, and you have other items like pallet, e-waste, etc. Let's imagine a medium-sized shopping mall. It will generate usually around 2,000 tons of trash per year, and that will be a cost of $180,000 a year. What about if this shopping mall implement a zero-waste program? Let's assume that after a few months or a few years, they successfully segregate 100% of all the cardboard and paper and 50% of all the food waste. That gives you an overall recycling rate of 45%. In Singapore, the average recycling rate of a shopping mall is 5%. Achieving 45% is a big success. It's not inachievable. It has been done in the United States. It is successful, and some shopping malls can go way further. Now, if we apply the numbers I just showed you before, by doing so, the shopping mall will save $85,000 a year. That is, from there, just here, 45% cost savings. What's coming? So maybe you wonder, okay, I'm running my facility, why should I take care about my waste? It's not such a big cost when you compare to energy or when you compare to labor. However, you must know that materials are being scarcer and scarcer, and the price will rise. It might be brutal or it might go slowly, but it will happen. You also have to know that consumers are more and more aware of environmental issues, and they have much higher expectations toward your business. And finally, you must expect more stringent regulation on pollution and waste management. So if I talk about Singapore here, next year the government has announced that they will publish a zero waste master plan for Singapore, and in 2 years' time they will implement the Singapore extended producer responsibility, which make businesses accountable for monitoring and reporting on how much packaging they generate in their operations, which means more administration cost, and if you have less waste to deal with, it will be a lesser cost. Now, let's go in the real thing and how to implement a zero waste program. First, I'm going to introduce you the 3 companies I will mention during this presentation. The first one is Piazza Produce. It is a food wholesaler and supplier. You have Interface, a carpet manufacturer and distributor, and you have Tesla Motors, an automotive manufacturer. Step 1. you need to know your waste. You cannot organize a program to reduce waste if you have no idea what you are trashing. So the first question you need to ask is, what waste do you generate and how much? What can you do to minimize waste in your facility upstream and downstream of your supply chain? And finally, what value can you recover from your discards? Now, who can answer this question? Well, you have basically two ways. You can do it internally, or you can get the help from external consultants. Internally, it means that you need to look for trusted employees that throughout the facility can investigate the question and look for solutions. An external company will be able to provide experience, knowledge, and tools that will help you to make the good, informed decision. What kind of consultant you are looking for? If you are looking for specifically zero waste, I will recommend you to look for what we call a true advisor. It's a person which has been certified by the US Green Building Council and which do have the knowledge to help you in implementing a zero waste program. Step two. First, when you want to look for identifying opportunities, it is highly recommended you do what we call a zero waste audit. It's slightly different from a waste audit. It is much more comprehensive and investigate issues way beyond your facility and your upstream and downstream of the supply chain. And what we do typically is to review your internal policies, review your waste management practices, including assets, contract. We do a behavior assessment of your employees, how well are they aware of the waste they generate, and how willing they are to minimize waste. Of course, we look for opportunity identification, and before that, we need to do a garbage investigation. It can be quite messy, but opening your trash is the only way we have to actually find out what you actually throw away. So once you do a zero waste audit, here's what you should expect. A roadmap which gives you a snapshot of your waste management performances and an opportunity list with estimated costs and benefits. Once you have this roadmap, you are able to make informed decisions and to make investments. Step two, get the support of your upper management. You need to know that a zero waste program is a journey. It is not a one-off project. It will affect significantly how you interact with your suppliers and your consumers. And so you need to make sure that your upper management will be here to support you if things go not as expected. And of course, and that is extremely important for any project company-wide you implement, you need to get your staff involved. Why? Because simply they are the one, in the end, they are the one to put the trash in the right bin. They are a great source of ideas for waste mitigation, and they are the direct engagement with your supplier and your consumer. And finally, step 4, implement project. As usual, implement, procure, implement and evaluate. Things to know, be aware of any waste compliance issues you have to deal with, and look for available funding from government schemes. In the case of Singapore, it is available through the 3R fund. And this is extremely important. To get the best value, your discards must be conditioned into a marketable product. I'm going to give you an example. You have this, someone come to you and say, we would like to install a digester in your facility to process your food waste. And they tell you, thanks to us, your food waste will be reduced in amount by 20 to 1. It will be less, it will weigh less, it will take less space. And plus, you can also sell it to the farmer or to the gardener. And you are like, great, let's do it. So you install your digester, you start to digest food, and then you go to the farmer and say, I would like to sell you some very good compost. The farmer look at it and say, no, I'm going to charge you for taking your compost. Like, why? Simply because the product that is coming out of the digester is not yet ready to be used on a crop. It still needs to be processed further by the farmer, and that's why you will have to pay, and that's why your business case will just collapse. So when you do a program to reduce or get the best value or recover value from your waste, make sure that it become a marketable product. And I'll give you another example maybe. A pile of cardboard has no value until you can actually compact it into a bale and you can then sell it. Let's talk about projects that have been implemented. In the case of Piazza Produce, they realized that the main opportunities were around reduce of packaging and also compost of organic food. It took them a long time to get the license from the EPA, the Environment Protection Agency from the US, but they finally got it and built a composting facility within the site. In the case of Tesla, it was a lot about reducing packaging as well. And here's how it looked like. This is a pile of windshield. So Tesla will receive spare parts from different suppliers. And in the case of windshields, they will all be packed into cardboard and foam. And the waste audit identified an opportunity here. They say, no, you should actually use a reusable rack. So instead, Tesla gets from the supplier a rack of windshield all organized this way. And it has been a significant benefit for the facility, not only in waste reduction, but they also realized it was much more effective to bring all these windshield on the production line. It will make the production faster, they will be more efficient, and it will take a lot less space. And finally, step 5, make sure that you always monitor, review, and celebrate success. Why? Because you need to verify the success of your project, and you need to keep all your stakeholders engaged throughout the process. And how? You can do regular waste audit. Usually, it is recommended to do a waste audit once a year. However, my answer to this will be, it depends on your way to monitor your waste on site. And of course, you need to report on the success. What kind of official recognition can you get? Well, the first one, if you are a shopping mall or hotel, is to look for the NEA 3Rs award, which is given every 2 years. Otherwise, you might look for what we call the True Zero Waste certification. So you might already have heard about the LEED certification for energy efficiency buildings. It is administered by the same organization, the US Green Building Council. In the case of the True certification, it has already been done. It has already certified over 100 facilities worldwide, and it recognizes ongoing success with a standardized methodology. Now, things to remember. Step 1, know your waste, get your upper management committed, get your staff involved, implement projects, and finally, monitor, review, and celebrate success. Now, I'm going to tell you about the outcome of the Zero Waste program for the 3 businesses I've mentioned. In the case of Piazza Produce, in only 9 years, they went from 0% to 95% diversion from landfill and incineration. They successfully built a culture of highly committed employees and suppliers. And if you go to this company, they will say that they are all part of the green team. And finally, in 2014, they received the gold level True Zero Waste certification for the achievement. If you go on the website, you have the description of the story of how they have achieved it and the success for it. Also, here's the evolution of the cost and the revenues generated from waste management. In 2005, they were spending annually over $100,000 a year. 5 years later, the cost was nil. And finally, in 2016, overall, they were generating $150,000 a year in revenue from the discards. In the case of Interface, it is said that they've accumulated $262 million in cost savings from waste mitigation. And they also mitigated the impact of the recession by reducing the operating cost. So you need to know that in that case, Interface has a much more ambitious programs than waste mitigation. It's about what they call the mission zero impact on the environment. And now they're even going bigger by saying they want to have a positive impact on the environment. In the case of Interface, it's about water efficiency, energy efficiency, waste efficiency, and resource efficiency. I highly recommend you to have a look to the TED Talk from Ray Anderson, the former chairman of Interface. And here is this chart. It will show you that throughout all this program, they have reduced the operating cost of the business. And into the year 2000, when the whole industry was going down by 36%, their business actually declined by only 17%. And as soon as the crisis was gone, they were able to catch up because they were more competitive. In the case of Tesla, just this spare part of the windshield has resulted in 278 tons of cardboard saved, and also the reduce of use of plastic foam. Following the success of this implementation for the windshield, they actually roll out the concept for all the spare parts. And they achieve a gain of space in the warehouse, in the waste bin, of course, a faster production, a better workplace for employees, a stronger relationship with suppliers, and in 2016 only, they estimated that they have saved $30 million in cost savings. And in 2016, they achieved the gold level True Zero Waste certification from the US Green Building Council. I will conclude on this one. So here's the key ideas I would like you to remember. First of all, waste is a sign of inefficiency. More waste you generate, more inefficient your business is. Less waste you generate, and better your business becomes. Waste is a goal. Zero waste is a goal and a strategy. And it addresses the triple bottom line of a business, meaning planet, profit, and people. If you can build on these three items, you make your business more responsible, more sustainable, and more successful. And going zero waste will add value to your organization, reduce costs of waste management, create new revenue streams, makes your organization more competitive, strengthens your customer and supplier relationships, and finally, mitigates impact of future regulation as well. And now it's for you to start your zero waste journey. So in Zero Waste City, we provide knowledge, expertise, and tools to help businesses to find these opportunities and to implement them. It is our role to help you guiding these changes and identifying the most cost beneficial opportunities for you. Now, if you have any question, I'm more than happy to answer.
Great stuff, Remi. That's fantastic. Do you actually do this work in the construction industry by any chance?
You mean as advising on new buildings?
Yeah.
We didn't have the opportunity yet to do so. Usually we will work on existing systems and to fine-tune them. But I will be more than happy to work on this kind of project.
The reason I ask is, there's a lot of the way things are going is around lean construction.
Yes.
And when it comes to lean construction, there's a lot of stuff which you spoke about actually relates to a lot of that. From a general contractor standpoint, they can actually save a lot of money in terms of wastage.
Yep.
And I think you have massive potential there.
Yeah, so this is actually a very good point. I would like to tell more about it. You have probably heard about the concept of lean management, resource efficiency auditing, and zero waste is not far from it. Typically, a lean management auditor will ask you the question, what work do you do and how can you make it more efficient? A resource efficiency auditor will ask you, what resources do you put in your site and what comes out? A zero waste auditor will ask you, what waste do you generate and how can you make it less? They might all end up with the same question, with the same result, but they will all ask different questions and have different angle of approach. So zero waste is actually very close, yes, to lean management. It is just a different way to approach an issue and try to make your business more sustainable and efficient.
No, thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Cesaro. Can just invite Dr. John Min, the last for today, to give a token of appreciation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Very interesting.
Thank you.
This is phenomenal.
There's a big hand for them. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Take a seat. Thank you very much.